This Parliament was formed not just from a desire to bring decisions closer to the people of Scotland, but to use those decision-making powers for a purpose: to address the economic and social trauma caused by deindustrialisation in decades gone by. People created this Parliament to advance social and economic justice in the hope that better decision-making would create a better Scotland for future generations. Every day we are here, we must measure the progress we make as a nation against the ambitions of those who founded the Parliament all those years ago. And, Presiding Officer, as someone who represents the west of Scotland and represents many of the communities who endured the collective trauma of deindustrialisation and inequality, I have to be frank that those ambitions have not been realised. Scotland is a far from equal country. I was originally looking forward to this debate, and today should have been about confronting regional inequalities neglected for too long. But with a few exceptions, there has been far too much pointless constitutional bickering between the SNP and Tories, and I don't think it puts Parliament in a good light. As Willie Rennie said, it seems our politics of late is dominated by inequalities, real or perceived, between nations, not the inequalities that exist within them. Inequalities that have been exacerbated by COVID, inequalities that have not had enough discussion and debate today. COVID hasn't affected us all the same. It hasn't affected all areas the same. 4 of the 5 local authorities with the highest COVID death rates are in my West of Scotland region. With 33 COVID-related deaths per 10,000 of the population in Renfrewshire, Renfrewshire has the worst death rates from this awful virus in the entire country, followed by Western Bartonshire, Inverclyde and North Ayrshire. All are areas living with the legacy of deindustrialisation, in North Ayrshire and Western Bartonshire having the highest levels of unemployment in the whole of Scotland. Some areas have been significantly harder hit than others, and those areas need extra support to recover and rebuild. And it's not just extra support for the front line like the NHS and local services. We need extra support to rebuild and recover our economy too. If levelling up means anything, it means levelling up the areas in Scotland with above average economic and social need. In Renfrewshire, for example, our local economy is suffering because of this pandemic, and one of the longest-standing economic challenges we face in Renfrewshire is the regeneration of Paisley Town Centre. Not a single penny of this levelling up fund will be spent regenerating Paisley Town Centre, the largest town in Scotland. And the money that is coming to Renfrewshire is not the sector-specific support we need for our key industries like aerospace and aviation to compensate for the thousands of jobs that have been lost in recent years. So I am calling for the West of Scotland to get its fair share of investment as we build back from this crisis for the reasons I've outlined. Presiding Officer, the Tories' policy of levelling up does appear to be a PR exercise. You can't level up an economy when you're levelling down welfare, when you're levelling down workers' rights, but at least the Tories have a policy. Where is the commitment or policy to levelling up in Scotland from the SNP? It's non-existent. The SNP today have brought forward a debate on the Tories' levelling up agenda. You should have been bringing forward a debate on your own levelling up agenda. You obviously haven't, because you don't have one. The Scottish Government used to, rightly in my opinion, have a cohesion target which aimed to reduce the employment gap between Scotland's regions. It was their levelling up target before the Tories' newfound interest in levelling up. But it was scrapped in 2017, perhaps because it showed the employment gap was widening. In October last year, I asked the Auditor-General to look at the regional inequality and the impact of COVID on the hardest-hit regions. I hope Audit Scotland and the Audit Committee are looking at those issues, because it's clear we don't just need to set targets, we absolutely do, but we also need to independently monitor the gap. It's not just the difference in unemployment between Aberdeenshire or Edinburgh compared to areas in my region that cause such concern. The scandal is that this SNP government has done nothing to remedy the stark inequalities within my region. Look at the claimant count from August 2021, as detailed by the ONS. In East Renfrewshire, it's 2.8% of the population. In Eastern Bartonshire, it's 3.2%. Compare those figures to 6.8% in North Ayrshire and 6.7% in Western Bartonshire and 5.6% in Inverclyde. Over 18%, almost a fifth of the country's most deprived data zones are in the west of Scotland. The single most deprived zone in the whole country is Greenock Town Centre. 2 zones in Fergusley Park and Paisley are in the top 10. And so I remind the Chamber again that these are the areas hit hardest by the COVID crisis. These gaps between our regions reinforce the inequalities in health, life expectancy, education and poverty. Presiding Officer, it will take more than platitudes or bombast to address the profound regional inequalities. We need action and investment and, more importantly, the political will. In late 2018, the Fraser Vandler Institute published its North Ayrshire Economic Review. There is a sentence in that which applies to the whole of my West of Scotland region and indeed applies to the whole of Scotland. The review said, if significant inroads are to be made in tackling regional challenges, this will require major investment and national strategic support. Presiding Officer, levelling up across Scotland and levelling up across the UK will take more than sound bites and slogans. It will take more than one-off pots of cash. It takes leadership, sustained investment, a strategy to genuinely remake and reform our economy so it better serves left-behind communities. And it's in the absence of leadership, the absence of sustained investment and the absence of strategy that leaves the parties of government exposed today. The challenge for government is to rebalance the economy, to make it work for everyone. Because, bluntly, Presiding Officer, if the recovery isn't working for the West of Scotland, it isn't working at all. Thank you.
Thank you.